Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, where we'll be talking about the release highlights for HR in the minor versions 18.3 and 18.4. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Rana Abdel Sattar. I'm a functional consultant and HR expert here at Odoo. So first things first, when we talk about HR in Odoo, we're usually referring about a specific suite of applications that we use to manage HR in the software. Those are the apps that you can see on screen right now. So for today's webinar, we're going to be talking about the improvements in some of those applications. We'll talk about employees and documents, recruitment and appraisals, time off, payroll, attendances, and some of the other smaller apps in the scope as well. So let's get started. So first off, we have employees and documents. So let's see what we have for employees. We're going to see how we can create users in mass from the employees. We're going to talk a bit about the skills improvements. And we're going to be talking about the merging of employees and contracts, which is actually a small part of a big refactor that is coming. So also make sure to catch that in OXP, where we're going to be going into a lot more details about the refactor, and there's going to be even more improvements done. And for documents, we're going to be talking about how the usability of documents with employees has changed. There's a lot of great improvements there. And we're also going to be seeing that the documents folder is now visible in the portal. So this all makes it a lot easier for centralization. And so let's just get into the demo. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the bulk creation of users. Now, a lot of the time you have employees already imported in the database, and you want to create users for those employees to be able to access your database. Now, traditionally, the way that we would go around this is that we would import the users, and then we would have to go and link them to the employees, or we would need to create the user one by one from each employee. So what we can do now is that we have a new server action that lets us do this in bulk. So here I see my employees page, and we're going to see how we can create users for several of those employees at the same time. Now, before I do that, I actually just want to go to the settings application. And if I scroll down a little bit, I'll be able to see that I have here default access rights, which I can adjust. Now, this is a very important step, because when you're creating several users at the same time, they're all going to have the default access rights. Of course, you can go and change those later on, but it's easier to have them set up in a way that will make it the least amount of work for you at the end. So here we can make some changes. For example, I want the default user to have user access to projects. We can change their access to the HR apps, for example, and any other changes that we want to make. So I'm going to save my changes here. Click on Save again. And then I'm going to go back into my employees application. Now that I have my default access rights ready, I can go into the list view and I select the employees that I want to create internal users for. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that doing this will create users and add them on your subscription. So you have to make sure that your subscription has enough users that when you create those users, you will not be charged extra for a charge that you weren't anticipating. So I've selected the employees, and then I'm going to click on the action button, and I'll click on Create User. So you see here that I get a warning, and it tells me that I'm about to invite three new users, and they will be created with the default user templates. So that's why we've changed the default access rights, and it also tells me that adding new users might increase my subscription cost. So I'm going to confirm. And now I see the notification that the users have been successfully created. If I go into the users, I see the users that I just created, and each one of them is linked to the respective employee. So this really makes things a lot easier, especially if you have a pre-existing database where you want to invite new users. A lot of the time, you don't necessarily have users set up for employees from the get-go. You might want to do it in phases. There's so many different use cases where this is very helpful. So this is a great new improvement. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the skills. So, of course, the skills is something that we've had for a couple of versions now, and it's very helpful in a lot of different ways. For example, it helps you keep track of the skills that your employees have so that you know if you have a need for a specific project, you would be able to easily find out who can help you with that. It also comes in a lot in recruitment. So if you're hiring someone that you're looking for a specific skill set, a specific language, it helps us a lot in the selection process. So along with the skills, we now also have certifications. So as you can see on the employee form, we have a new tab called certifications. Now, let's take a look at how we can actually add certifications and what is the difference between a certification and a normal skill. So if I go into configurations, I can go into the skill types, and here I have all my traditional skill types. Each one includes a set of skills and a set of levels as well that I can select. And you can see the last one here called certifications, and it has a little icon next to it. Now, the reason that this icon is there is because there is now a certifications checkbox, and this is checked on the skill type. So for any of the others, if I go to the languages, for example, and I select the checkbox, that would be what I see as well. I'm going to keep the languages as is, and I'll just go into the certifications. And here we see that we have two certifications that we can choose from. So we have Odoo and Scrum Master. Generally, the certification might not necessarily have several levels. It can just be certified or not certified. But sometimes you can have different levels. So this really depends on your own preference. I'm going to keep it for one level for now, because just to be able to see what the certification looks like when we add it to the employee. Now, I'm going to go back on my employees, and I'm going to go to Abigail's profile, and I'll add a certification for her. Now, when I go to add a line, it asks me to select from the two skills that are under a certification skill type. And I'm going to say that she's had an Odoo certification from the 1st of January, and I can also choose to add an end date. Now, we know, of course, some certifications have an end date and others don't. So this all really depends on how you set it up and how you add it to the employee as well. So Abigail is certified in Odoo, and that certification does not expire, but she is also certified as a Scrum Master, but she got that certification in June of last year, and it is actually valid until June of this year. So if I add that, let me go back and add the start date again. So 1st of June of 2024, and it's valid until the 1st of June of 2025. So adding that, you can see that this is added, but there's a slight difference between the two in that an expired certification shows up as grayed out, so that I can tell just from looking at her profile that one of the certifications is valid and the other one is already expired. And what I can do as well is if I go to another profile and I add a certification, so let's say Eka here has a Scrum Master certification that she obtained in September of last year. So let's go to 2024 in September. And this one is valid until September of this year. I'm going to save and close. And you can see here that the end date here is highlighted in orange because the certification is about to expire. So the system gives me that visual warning that the certification is expiring so that I'm aware if this person needs to renew their certification that they would need to do so. So yeah, another great thing that we have on the skills is, of course, first of all, the certifications, like we mentioned, are very valuable for employees, but they're also very valuable for applicants. So all of those changes are also relevant on the recruitment side. You're going to be able to use certification skill types the same way that you were able to use other skill types in the past on recruitment. Now, another great thing that we have here with the skill types is the skills inventory report. So if I go to the skills inventory report, here I see a report that is grouped by skill type. So if I'm looking for someone that speaks a specific language, or if I want to know how many languages my employees speak, I simply have to open this, and I see that here I have 6 employees that speak English, 1 employee that speaks French. So in this way, if I'm looking for someone to fulfill a specific purpose, let's say I have a client who's working in French, I need someone to deal with them, I can simply go here and I see who is proficient enough to do that, and I will know that they're up for the task. So yeah, again, those changes are really going to make things a lot easier, not just for the HR team, but for anyone who, for managers and anyone who is invested in the employees' skill sets. Now, the next change is a big one, and like I mentioned before, this is part of a larger refactor that we're going to be talking a lot more about in OXP, so make sure to be there, whether in person or online. We'll look forward to having you there. But basically, what has happened in this version is that the contracts model and the employees model have been merged together. So in the past, you used to have an employee and a contract that were separate from each other. Now, there's certain information that is on the employee and certain information that is on the contract. In some cases, this information is repeated. So you could have information that is both on the contract and on the employee. At the same time, there are some changes that you might need to make to the employee that you are not necessarily linked to a change of contract. So let's take an example of that. Let's say you have an employee who is generally working 38 hours per week, but for the month of August, they're working a reduced working hours. So they're going to be working 28 hours per week. And you want to set that up so that, for example, your attendance application takes that into account automatically. Now, in the past, what you would have needed to do was create a new contract for the employee, saying that in this month they will be working different working hours, and then you'll create a third contract to go back to the original. Now that can be really tedious, and then you have also the states of the contract that you have to worry about. So for this and a lot of other reasons, the contract and the employees have been merged together. But it's not just that. We also have a new feature which is called the employee version. So for each employee, we have different versions of the same employee. What that means is that I can have the same employee but different information corresponding to specific dates. So let's take a closer look at this. Now, if I've gone here to the Payroll tab, and as you can see, this has all of the information that used to be on the contract. So here, because I'm using the Belgian localization, so I see a lot of the fields that used to be on the contract when I have the Belgian localization installed. They're all now under the Payroll tab on the employee. Now, for example, we have here the wage type, the wage, how much the employee is getting paid per month. And of course, this is not necessarily always going to be the same throughout the employee's time at the company. So this can be linked to the contract, and you see here that we still do have a contract feature, so to speak, where we have the start date and a potential end date for the contract. But I can also create a second version that is linked to the same contract. So let's take a look at that. Here I have Abigail Peterson. She started working on June 2025, but I'm going to say that for the month of September, her working hours are going to go down from the 35 hours per week to 20 hours per week. Now, legally, I don't want to create a new contract for her. I don't want to have to go through that entire process. So I can just create a version. I say what date that version starts. So I'm going to say it's on the 1st of September, for example. And here, her working hours are going to be 20 hours per week. And then I can go ahead and create a second version that starts on the 1st of October. So going back to her standard 35 hours per week that she was working before. Now, you can see here at the top, I can switch between versions a lot more easily than I could with contracts. So if I go here, I have the 20 hours per week. Here, it's the 35 hours per week. And all of this is linked to the dates so that the system knows that within that time, there is a change in the working hours or a change on the employee. Now, of course, I can do the same thing with the contract. So I have here this contract that is starting on the 1st of June, but I can say that if I want to create a new contract for Abigail for next year, then basically what I have to do is I just set an end date to this contract. So I'm going to say, for example, this is going to end on at the end of May of 2026. And now I'm going to create a new version for her that begins at the beginning of June of 2026. And with this new version, I'm also going to add a new contract. So by doing that, Abigail basically has two contracts, one of them that starts on in June 2025 and ends at the end of May 2026, and the second one starts at the beginning of June of 2026. So here are all of my different versions. And of course, because I made an adjustment to the contract on this version, which was used on the two previous versions, it also has made the same change to the contract that is on the other two versions, whereas my working hours are different from each version to the next. So there's a lot of really exciting things that we can do with this new change. And like I said, it's going to change a lot about how we use HR in Odoo and how we use payroll on Odoo. Like I mentioned before, stay tuned for OXP, where we're going to be talking a lot more about this and all of the other changes. So now that we've seen the changes in employees, let's move on to the changes in documents. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is something that's very exciting because we've actually, it's a use case that we've encountered a lot before. So if I go on the documents application and I go under the company, I see here all of the workspaces that are added by default, and I have the HR workspace. Under that, I have the employees workspace, and here I have a separate folder for each one of my employees. Now, all of those folders were created automatically by the system. I didn't have to manually create them. So whenever I create a new employee, a specific folder is created for that employee. Now, this is great because it helps my HR employees with centralization of the data for the employees, and it also helps them with sharing this data with the employees. So Specifically, if the employee does not have a user on Odoo, this is going to make it a lot easier, because now that I have a folder for each employee, I can simply put all of the data that I want to share with them here, and then I can share this folder with them. So I have this folder, and I can see here that Walter already has access to his own folder. So when he accesses it, he will get a link where he can access this folder, and inside it will be any files that I have added for him to see. Yeah, basically, whenever I create a new employee, there's going to be a folder created for them here, and I can use it however I want to. If I want to use it internally to store this employee's file, then I can do that. If I want to share it with the employees so that they can see all of the information in their own file, then I can do that as well. Now, the other great thing that's changed in documents is that now portal users can see their documents from the portal as well. Now, this is not just for employees. This is for any portal user. So let's have a look at some of our documents here. So let's say I have this image that I want to share with one of my clients, Brandon Freeman. So I'm simply going to add his email, and I'm going to set the role. I can have him as an editor or as a viewer, and I can choose to notify him so that he gets an email that this has been shared with him. Now that I've done that, if we go and take a look at Brandon's profile, we want to see what he has access to, and we see that now he has this documents tab that wasn't there before. So if I go into the documents, you see that I have here the image that I have just shared with him, and also this invoice that I have shared with him previously. So he'll be able to see all of the documents, all of the workspaces that I've shared with him. And if I set him as an editor on a workspace, he'll also be able to upload. Now, because I've set him as, I've only shared with him specific files, and I haven't given him access to edit anything, he's not able to upload, but I can make the change as well. And he'll be able to view the files and download them as well. Now, this is great because it's going to make flows a lot easier, not just for HR employees who are dealing with sending files to a lot of employees at the same time, but also from a sales perspective where I want to share certain documents with my client as well. So now that we've seen the improvements in employees and documents, let's move on to recruitment and appraisals. So from the recruitment side, we have some interface improvements. We have a new look for the Kanban view. We have a bit of a change in how we see the link trackers for each job position. And we have a promote action button, which I'll explain a bit more in a second. And then we have something that is also going to be a bit of a game changer for anyone who works with recruitment app, which is bulk follow or unfollow for applications. Now, on the appraisals side, the main thing that I want to showcase today is the appraisals campaign feature that's been added on the appraisals app. So let's go back into the demo and take a look at that. Now, if I go into the recruitment application, you can already see the Kanban view of the job positions, how it's changed. Now, this makes it a lot easier to interact with and makes it look a lot cleaner as well, because traditionally with job positions, you don't really have stages, so you don't have a use for the traditional cards that we had before. So this makes everything look a lot easier to use and makes it look a little bit less overwhelming as well. Now, same as before, the ordering is going to have the published job positions first, and then we're going to have anything that is starred, and then everything else is going to come later on. Yeah. Now, if we go into one of our job positions and I go into the configurations, I see that I have here a new tab for the trackers. Now, previously, this used to be up here as a smart button, but now I can go here and I see it right away as a part of my job position, any trackers that I have, what is the medium, and I can very easily go ahead and copy the URL so that I can go to my platform and paste that URL where whenever I get an application from it, it's already going to have the source on it. Now, the last thing that I want to discuss is the promote action button. So if you were with us in the last webinar, we discussed a new feature that was in the 18.1 and 18.2 versions, which was the referral campaign. Now, of course, the referral campaign is a way for me to send or promote a job position to my employees internally, which allows them in turn to promote it to their own network. Now, before it used to be in the action button, so I would have to go and click on the action button to send it to employees. But now I can simply click on the promote button. I already have the email template and I can choose who I'm going to send it to, whether I want to send it to all employees or to a selection of employees, and I can choose which ones to send it to. And then I can click on send and the referral campaign's been published. Now, if we go into the appraisals application, we'll see that now we have a new button, launch campaign. And this is really great because before, if you wanted to select, if you wanted to create appraisals for several employees at the same time, you had to do it from the employees application. But really, it makes a lot more sense to do it from the appraisals application, because if you're an HR officer and you're wanting to see the appraisals for the employees, create appraisals for several employees, it really makes a lot more sense to do it from the appraisals app. So this is where the launch campaign feature comes in. And you can see that we have the mode. So I can do it either by employee, by company, if I have multi-company, by department. So I can say that I'm going to do the appraisal for administration all at once, or by a specific employee tag, which I can select. Yeah, another thing is that you can see here that if I have an employee that does not have a manager, the system will give me a warning that we can't create an appraisal for this employee, because in order to create an appraisal for an employee, of course, they have to have a manager who will be assigned to their appraisal. And I can also choose the default template for the employee. So, for example, if I want to select by employee, I can simply go search more. I can search when their first contract date was, so when they when they joined my company. I can set it to be within a specific period and create an appraisal for all of my employees who are nearing the end of their probationary period. So I don't have to do it one by one. I can just simply create an appraisal campaign. Yeah, so once I've clicked on schedule, it creates all of the different appraisals for me. So that's it for appraisals. Now, if we go back to the presentation, the next thing we have is the time off application. Now, in the time off application, we're going to be talking about three main improvements. The first one is the visibility of half days on the overview. The second one is the ability to take time off by hours from the calendar view directly. And the third one is the warning for overlapping requests. So if I go back into my database and I go to the time off application, let's take a look at the first improvement that we discussed. So here I'm going to go ahead and take a half day on Friday. So I simply need to select Friday, and then I'm going to select the half day. I'm going to say that I'm going to take the afternoon, and I'll submit the request. Now, once the request has been submitted, you can see that now the day is highlighted, but it's only highlighting half of the day. Because whereas before, if I have a full day, it's going to be highlighting the full day. So yeah, this makes it a lot more visual for me as an employee to see my own time off, and as well for an HR officer if they wanted to see the time off for a specific employee, to see when there was a half day and when there was a full day. And as you can see here, we had on the 12th of February, we also had a half day, but this was the first half of the day, the morning, whereas this is in the afternoon. So it also shows you which half of the day the time off was taken. Yeah. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about, I need to go into either the weekly or the daily view in my calendar. So I'm going to go into my weekly view, and I can see here my entire week, and I'm going to go into next week actually. And let's say that I want to take some time off on Monday, but I don't want to take a full day or even a half day. I want to take a few hours. So what I can do is I can go to the time where I'm going to be out of office, and I simply drag and let go. And now I have the request created. It's already going to choose the first time off that it finds where I'm allowed to take specific hours. So the first time off where the configuration is not either full day or half day, I can take specific hours. It's going to check that I'm taking specific hours, and it's going to already have the start date, the start time and the end time of this time off. So all I have to do is submit the request, and it's as easy as that. I don't have to manually input the time where I'm starting and the time where I'm ending anymore. Now, the last improvement that we're going to be talking about in time off, let me go back into the yearly view of my calendar, and I can see that I already have a few days in July as time off. Now, usually, of course, if I'm applying for the time off from the overview, I can already see that those days are blocked, but there's a lot of times when we're going to be applying for the time off from my time off, not necessarily from the calendar. So I don't see visually what days I have already taken, or if someone is applying for that time off for me. So if I go and add the 21st of July, I can see the warning that tells me that I already have time off booked for which overlaps with this period, so I can't create a new time off. Now, before, what used to happen is that when I would try to approve this, it would give me an error. So now it kind of before I even get to that point, it gives me that warning that I already have an overlapping time off, so I shouldn't be creating a time off during this period. So I can simply cancel it and take my time off at another time. And that's it for what we're going to be talking about for time off today. So let's see what we have next. So next up is the payroll application. And again, we're going to be talking about 3 changes in the payroll application. The first one is the optional overtime work entry. So basically, this is in relation to when we have the work entry type set to either planning or working schedule, and we also enter attendances at the same time. Traditionally, what would happen is that if I enter an attendance that is outside of my set working schedule, it will create a work entry for me, an overtime work entry for me. And now this is optional. It is not preset by default. The second one is the payslip lines report, which is a report that was already in a lot of our localizations. So what has happened is that now it's been added in standard, so you don't need to have a localization in order to use it, so that even if you're creating your own localization, you will still have access to the payslip lines report. And the third one is the pay run feature, which has actually replaced the batch payslips. So we're going to see what that looks like, how it works, and all of that. So let's jump right in. And I'm going to go into the payroll application. And first things first, I'm going to talk about the optional work entries. So if I go into employees, you can see also that I have a new menu here called versions. So this is going to show me all the different versions of my employees. And of course, I can group by employee as well to make things a little bit easier. But right now, I just want to go into the employees themselves. So I have two different employees. If I go under the payroll, I see that here I have my work entry source is the working schedule, and the extra hours option is ticked. So like I mentioned before, the way that this works is that if I have the work entry source set as working schedule or planning, so it's not set as attendances, but I also am utilizing the attendances application. What the extra hours checkbox does is it controls whether the extra hours that are recorded on attendance reflect into my payroll work entries or not. So here I have it set so that it does reflect, but on Anita's profile, I have the same configuration, except the extra hours do not reflect on my working schedule. So let's take a look at what that would look like in practice. Now, if I go into the attendances application and I go to yesterday, I see that I already have some time with extra hours for both of them. And I can go to the day before as well and create some attendance records for them again so that we see how those will work. That's quite a lot of overtime, but it's okay. Yeah, so if I go back to my payroll application and I take a look at the work entries, I can see here that for Eka Foster, we have the overtime work entries created. But for Anita, we don't have any overtime work entries created. Now here I do have a conflict that I would just need to resolve, and regenerating the work entries should usually fix that. But I have a overtime work entry before, so I added the work entry from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. I added the attendance record from 12 a.m. until 6 p.m. And it's both before and after her expected working time. So I have one overtime work entry before and another overtime work entry after. And for yesterday, I also have an overtime work entry after. Whereas for Anita, because I unchecked that box, those changes do not reflect on my work entries. So I'm still able to track her extra hours on an attendance side, but they don't reflect in her work entries and they don't reflect in payroll at all. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about in payroll, like I mentioned, is the payslip lines report. So under my reporting, I have the payslip lines. Now, like I mentioned before, this report was already in a lot of different localizations, but because it is a really significant report that we tend to use a lot, it's been added into standard. So I'm able to have a report of all of the different lines that show up on my payslip. I can have filters however I want them to be. I can have grouping for like different contracts. I can see the different payslips however I want to see it, and all of the amounts as well. So I no longer have to have a specific localization for this to be available. It's now available by default. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, and perhaps the biggest change in payroll, is the pay runs. So if we go into the pay runs, and right away you can see that it already looks a bit different than what the batches looked like. So I have here a lot of information just from the screen itself. So I see what stage this pay run is in, what are the dates, what is the gross amount and the net amount that I'm paying for my employees, and of course they're grouped by the status as well. Now, what happens when I need to create a new pay run? I would simply click on New. I can select the salary structure if I want to. So if I'm choosing, for example, the monthly pay for the employees that work under the CP200, I would set it there. The scheduled pay would, of course, be defaulted from the salary structure, but I can change it if I need to, and I would select the period as well. Now, when I click on continue, I would get the employees. Now here, of course, I don't have all of my employees. These are the employees that are eligible to have the salary structure that I selected. If I want to only have this pay run for a specific number of employees, I can, of course, use the filters as well. So before we had the option to set a specific department or a specific salary structure that we're creating the batch payslip for. Now it's even more variable, so I can set any filters that I want. I can search for specific employees and select them, and then I can click on select. And now my pay run has been created. So it's been created in waiting, of course, and I can confirm it to set it as done. For now, I'm just going to go back into this screen here, and I see that it's created it for me as the pay run for August 2025 for the CP200 employees monthly pay. Now, I have here all of the information that I need to have at a quick glance. And if I also still have the option to create an off-cycle payslip. So that's a payslip that's not related to a specific pay run. And that would be, so before we had we had the batch payslips and we had individual payslips. Now all my off-cycle payslips are basically the ones that are not related to a specific pay run. So I have here all of my pay runs, and under the payslips, if I go to payslips, I have all of the different payslips, whether they're linked to a pay run or they're off-cycle, and I can create from here either an off-cycle payslip or a new pay run. So yeah, this is going to make things a lot easier for payroll officers. And again, it's also just a small part of all of the changes that are coming in 19. So make sure to catch all the different HR talks at OXP as well to see more about what is coming in payroll and all of the other apps. Right. So next up, we have the attendances application. And in attendances, we have two different features that we're going to highlight today. The first one is the localization field on the attendance record that is now based on the GPS coordinates. And the second one is the presence indicator on the kiosk screen. Now I'm going to explain a little bit more about both of those in a second. So let's go back into our database. So I'm going to go into the attendances application. And here I want to go and see my own attendance record that I checked in this morning, and I have this attendance record. So if I go and see into the details of it, I can see that it gives me the location of where I checked in from. Now you can see here the address of our Odoo office, and it is based on the GPS coordinates. Now what used to happen before is that this location used to be based on the IP address. So even if the employee gives access to the location, to the browser to access their location, the GPS coordinates themselves would be based on the location, but the location used to be based on the IP address. So now both of them are based on the actual GPS coordinates, but of course it is specific on the employee having given access to the browser to access their location. If they refuse that permission, then both of them will be based off of the IP address. So this is really great because basically in my attendances, it's no longer really based on the GPS coordinates. I can simply group by the location, and I'll be able to tell where the employees are checking in from. So it gives me an actual idea of where the employees are checking in from. Now, the next feature that we're going to talk about is actually related to the kiosk mode on attendances. Now, I don't want to open the kiosk mode here because, as we saw before, now we have the secure link to the kiosk mode, which we saw a few months ago. So if I open it here, I will be logged out. So instead, I'm going to go to this other screen where I have the kiosk mode already open. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Identify Manually in order to be able to see all of my employees that I can check in or check out. And once I've done that, I can see whether each one of them is checked in or not. So I can see, for example, Abigail Peterson is on site, Anita Oliver is absent, so that means that she has not checked in. And if I go and check in Doris, for example, and I go back to my screen, I now see that she is on site as well. So this is a really good indicator both for managers. If you're checking the kiosk screen, you're not really at your laptop, you don't want to go into the backend, you can see who's in and who's not. And as well for the employee, in case they've forgotten if they've checked in or not, now they can see what their status is right from the screen. So that's it for the improvements in attendances that I wanted to talk about. So let's go back and see what we have next. So now we're getting to the part where we talk about a few different apps altogether. So those are some of the apps that maybe are a little bit less well known. So let's see what we have here. So we have for approvals, we're going to talk about the force approval action, what that does, what is the purpose of it, and how to use it. And for fleet, we're going to talk about some improvements to the quick create and some changes to the model configurations as well. And on the front desk, we're going to talk about some UX improvements, and we're going to see the checkout link that is sent on the notification email that is sent to the host. So let's go back into our database and take a look at that. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the approvals application. Now, in the approvals application, what we typically have is for each approval category, there's specific approvers that need to approve it, right? So for example, on the business trip, we have Mark Demo, who is responsible for this approval. Now, the only issue here is that, let's say, for example, Mark Demo is off for a specific period of time. Now, I can go and add an approver here, but then any approvals that were created before, I'm not going to be able to approve them. So basically, what's been done now is that I can, as an admin of the approvals application, I can force the approval to go through. So I can see here that Lori has submitted a request for a business trip. She has submitted it to Mark Demo, but as it happens, Mark Demo actually is on leave, so he's not available to approve this request. And since I'm not one of the approvers, I don't see the button to approve it, even though I am an administrator on approvals, so I should have the right to approve this. Now, what I can do is I click on the action button and I force the approval. So now it's been approved, and I haven't had to interrupt Mark's vacation in order to ask him to check the approval request. The next thing I want to talk about is the fleet application. Now, like I mentioned, in the fleet application, there's been some changes that have happened to the quick create. Now, the quick create refers to basically from this Kanban view, if I want to create a new vehicle without having to go into the form view and making all the changes, I can click on this plus button at the top, and I have the quick add form. Now, before I used to just have to add a title, but it makes more sense to actually add the model and the license plate for the vehicle that I'm adding. So that is what the change is mainly about. So let's say this new vehicle is a Toyota Corolla, and I can add the license plate number and any tags that I need as well. So I'm going to say this is an employee car, and I can go ahead already and add a new one. So this is a really great way to enable my users to quickly create vehicles without having to just add the title, then go back and add all of the information. Now I have my most relevant information already added, and anything else that I need to add, I can just go in and adjust on here. So the second change we're going to be talking about in Fleet refers to the configuration of the models. But actually, before I get to that, I just really quickly want to show you something really cool in the manufacturer's menu as well. So on the manufacturer's menu, before, what used to happen is if I click on any of those cards, I'll be able to make changes to the configurations of the manufacturer. But now what happens when I click on this is that I get a list of all of the models that are linked to this manufacturer, which is a really cool way to quickly be able to see a list of the models that I have. I see already on the card the count of the models, but here by clicking here, I can see the list of them as well. I'm still able to access that configuration of the manufacturer by clicking on the image or the logo. So here I clicked on the logo. I can make changes to the name. I can update the logo, so on. So again, just from this view, if I click on it here, I go to see all of the different models that are under this manufacturer. So yeah, let's click on this model and see what has changed here. Now, there's a few small changes. For example, some of the fields have been renamed. We also have a tooltip that's been added to a few of the fields as well, which you can see by hovering on the question mark next to it. But the coolest thing that we have here is that when we go down to the engine specifications, next to the range, we're now able to select the unit of measure that we're using for the range. So I can either choose it to be in kilometers or in miles. And if I choose the range to be in miles, then my CO2 estimation emissions unit of measure changes as well. So basically, I am able to quickly go between one and the other. So that's it for the fleet application. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the front desk and what changes have been made there. So, the first thing that I mentioned was a few UX improvements, and these were actually, some of these are on the front end of the front desk application, so to speak. So if I go here, I have my front desk application, and as a visitor, if I go and check in, I can enter my name, I can enter my phone number, and then I click on check-in, and I need to select who I'm visiting. Now, before, I would get a very long list of people that I can choose from, which of course can be overwhelming for a visitor, especially if they're not really familiar with people that work in my company. So now what happens is that I can simply start typing and write the name of the person that I'm here to visit, and then I confirm, and then I can continue on with the flow. So this is a really easy, this really makes it easier for visitors to select who they're here to see without having to really be overwhelmed by a huge amount of information. Now, the next thing, so let's actually go into the front desk application, and I see that I have one station, and I'm going to go and take a look at the visitors. So I see that Bruce has already been checked in. Now, if you're familiar with the front desk application, you might also be able to see that there's a few smaller UX changes that have been made here, specifically concerning the cancellation of visitors that have been either checked in or checked out. It doesn't really make sense to be able to cancel them. But basically what I want to point out is that here I have a visitor who is Bruce, who has checked in to see me. I had a meeting with him this morning, and typically what happens is that when a visitor checks in, you have someone who is responsible for the station that will typically check them out. But let's say that person is not available for whatever reason. Now I, as the host, will have access to, will be able to check that visitor out from the email that was sent to me in confirmation of his visit. So if I go here, I have this email that was sent to me this morning when Bruce checked in, and basically, once my visit with him is done, I can simply click on checkout, and he'll be checked out in my database without the responsible having to do it. So now if I go back into the visitors, I see that Bruce has been checked out. So again, this is one of those small things that will make life a lot easier for my employees if they have to use the front desk application. So instead of having to go back to the responsible every time I need to check out a visitor, I can just do it myself. So this brings us to the end of what I have to highlight on the new improvements in 18.3 and 18.4. But we have a lot more that is also coming in the HR applications. A few highlights are going to be the ability to have partial days in time off requests. We're going to have public holiday data preloaded. We're going to be able to see the time off balance in the mobile application. We're going to be able to adjust to add a overtime rate on the work entry type. Like I mentioned, there's the refactor of payroll. We have some improvements to attendance. And of course, like every year, we have a lot of improvements on the payroll localizations, old and new. So make sure to catch us at OXP. Whether you're going to be here in person or you're going to be joining us online to see that and so much more. Now, we're going to be back in a few seconds for your questions. So make sure to leave your questions in the live chat down below. Hi, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking around for the Q&A section. And yeah, we're going to be taking some of the questions that were left in the live chat. So we have a question from Claudia. She says, what if there are documents in the employee folder that you do not want them to see? Is there an option to shield or lock certain documents when you share the folder? So that's a really good question. Now, typically, when you share the folder with the employee, you will be sharing all of the files in that folder. If you want to have specific folders that are specific files that are not shared, then there can be a few different ways around it, with maybe only sharing specific documents, or having a second folder that has the documents that you want to keep hidden. But then again, this is one of the features that is still growing, so we might see a change of that by the time 19 is out. So yeah, for now, this is the way to handle it, but we'll see in a few months as well if there's going to be a change to that. Now, we have a question from LinkedIn, which is, are the signed document by employee also pushed into the document folder for this employee? Now, we have already on the configurations in the settings, the centralization of the recruitment files, which shows the files attached to the application and the job position. So here we can choose which folder the files will go to in the application. Yeah, so basically they're going to go into the recruitment folder. But for the contract itself, when it is signed, I believe we would have to test that out because this is a very new feature. So yeah, we can test out the flow, and you can test out the flow, and yeah, we'll see if that's the case currently. Right, so next question from LinkedIn. In case of promotion and increase in duty, how can it be reflected on the system? Right, so this is also a good question. So I can jump into the database to show you a few things. So on the employees, again, we do have, like I mentioned, the versions where we're able to see all of the different things that have changed over the different periods, and if I have a promotion or if I have a change in the responsibilities. One of the ways that I can have a promotion is by indexing the contract. So I am on the version. I have the most recent one. If I select it, I can choose to index the contract, and I can choose which contract I'm indexing. Now, here I'm doing it for a specific employee, but I can also do it from the payroll application from the versions, and select several at the same time. And I can set the index that I want to add, and then I can confirm. At the same time, if I want to have a change of the wage, so I'm not just doing an indexation. So that is very similar to what we did earlier during the demo, where I created a second contract. So by doing that, I set an end date to my first contract, and then I created a second contract where here I can change the salary for my employee. And basically effective of the 1st of June 2026, this will be my employee's new wage. And before that, it's going to stay as the original wage. Now, same as the change of responsibilities. So if the employee's job position is changing, I can also change it on a different version. Right. So we have another question from LinkedIn. What about in cases of written remarks? Is there a possibility in the system to go directly to the employee and to evidence that he has received notice without needing the written documents? So I'm not entirely sure what you mean by evidence that they've received the documents, but if I can show you on the database, one way to handle this is that I can send the documents to the employee or send the written remarks to the employee through the chatter. So from the chatter here, I can write any notes to the employee, any written remarks that I want. If the employee has a user, which Abigail does, I can simply log a note and tag them on it. So I can tag Abigail Peterson. I write any remarks that I want and I send it to her and she'll get the notification. If she does not, then I will send a message and it will be sent to her email. And here I see that it's going to Abigail Peterson. And basically whatever I write, so here I'm going to ask her to check for the contract renewal, for example. And it's going to be logged here in the chatter, so that works as kind of a proof that they've been sent a specific written remark without having to send them an actual document. Hopefully that answers your question. Right. So we have another question from LinkedIn, which is it possible to see all the public holidays in colors in the calendar view? So if I go back into my demo database, we have on the time off application the public holidays that are going to be set up, and I see them on my calendar view, but they're going to be grayed out. So let me check again for the public holidays. Yeah, so we have for February of 2025. I believe that's on a different working schedule than the one I'm on, so we can just have it here. And I see that it's grayed out. So any public holiday that I have is going to be grayed out because that is how the system tells me that this employee is not supposed to be working on that day. And Yeah, basically, we don't really have them in different colors because if we did, every single public holiday is going to be in a different color, which I don't think would be really easy to see the information if that were the case. So it appears in the same way that the weekends appear, which is grayed out to indicate that the employee is not supposed to be working on that day. Right. Another question from LinkedIn. How do you manage the change of a time off of an employee from paid holiday to sick time off holiday? Right. So if the employee has applied for a paid holiday, but I want to adjust that to a sick time off, so I can show you that on the time off application. I'm logged in as a manager, so in order to do that, I would need to have access to the time off application as an officer or an administrator. And I can go to the management menu and the time off menu. And I just see all of my different time off requests. So if the employee has applied for a paid time off, but I think it should be a sick time off, then I can simply change the type of the time off and that before I validate it, so that once I validate, it's taken as the correct time off. Yeah, so basically I just need to go to the request, make the change, and then I can approve it. Right. We have a question from Enrique. Is there a way to know who is not in and should be in and who is not in but shouldn't be in? Okay, so basically, there's a few different ways that we can do this. So I think the easiest way is to show you. So if we're talking about attendances, on the attendance application, you can see already who are the employees that are supposed to be in and when they're supposed to be in, because you're going to see that the time when they're supposed to be working is highlighted, whereas all the other times are going to be grayed out. So here from the attendance view, I can see a list of all my employees, and I can see all of the ones that are supposed to be checked in because their days are highlighted and are not. And I can see all of the ones that are supposed to be in and are in. Now, another way to do it as well is to utilize the absence management feature, which we also talked about in one of the previous webinars, where basically, if I check this every day, the system will create a attendance record that this employee was actually not in attendance. So if the employee is supposed to be in, then there will be a record of their absence. If they're not supposed to be in, there will not be a record of their absence. Now, a third option that we can use for this is by using the presence control on the employee's application. We can do that by going to the settings and selecting the advanced presence control, and we can have it based on attendances. Now, when we do that, basically what we're going to have is on the employee's application. So on the employee's dashboard, we're going to be able to group or filter by the presence or absence of the employees. Now, because I just selected this feature, it's not updated. There's a scheduled action that updates it. But basically, based on both the icon up here and the presence indicator, I can see who is present, who is absent, and who's not supposed to be in. So, for example, for Mark Demo, I see that he has the airplane icon, and that tells me that he's on time off today, so he's not supposed to be in at all. Keep in mind that this feature works on a daily basis. So for each day, you're going to be able to see the employees status right now, but it doesn't keep track of reporting like the attendance feature does. Right. So we have another question from LinkedIn, I believe. If one contract is already running and we create two versions of the employee details, including basic salary, which basic salary would be on the latest payroll? I have both versions and basic salary is different. Right. So basically, what's going to happen is if you have the employee having two versions with each one being having a different basic salary, the one that's going to be taken is the current version. So you have to keep that in mind, that right now if I create a payslip for Abigail Peterson, the version that is valid right now is the one that's going to be taken. So I created, she had one version that went from the 1st of June, and this one is valid all the way until the 1st of September. So that's the one that's going to be taken if I create a payslip for her now. Whereas if in next month I go and create a payslip for her, it's going to take the one that is in the 1st of September, because that's going to be the one that's relevant then. So you have to keep in mind when the version is supposed to be taking effect, and that's the one that will be taken. Mm-hmm. Right. So another question from LinkedIn. We have, how can we verify that in-out is legit? So I'm going to assume that you're talking about the attendances application. So I'm just going to go into my attendance application. And basically, we have a few different ways to have some security on the check-in and check-out for our employees. Now, keep in mind that all of this does require a certain amount of trust in your employees. There are some things that you can do, but you also have to have a little bit of that flexibility as well. Now, the different ways that employees can log in, can check in via the kiosk mode are the barcode, the RFID, and the manual selection. Now, when it comes to manual selection, I can also choose to set a PIN, employee PIN identification, where basically I set a PIN on my employee, so I can't just go and check in. I would have to enter the PIN number before I do so. Of course, it can always be argued that the employee can simply share the PIN with one of their colleagues in order for them to check them out. The other thing that we can do is the barcode. So for the barcode, you would have the employee's badge. It would have their own badge number set as a barcode, and they would need to scan it in order to check in. Now, the third option here is the RFID, and for the RFID, they would have to have the physical badge in order to check in. So you would need an RFID reader connected to whatever device you're running the kiosk on, and the employee, in order for the employee to check in or check out, they would have to have the actual physical badge, so they can't just have a picture of it. So basically those are the three different ways to have it done through the kiosk. Now, if your employees have users, then they can log in through their own user account through the systray, which shows up here as a green or a red dot, depending on the status of the employee. And this, like we saw before, tracks the location of where the employee has checked in or checked out. Okay. Okay, we have another question from LinkedIn. It's great to see that Dutch payroll administration is supported, but some features are still missing, such as automated tax filings and e-submissions, electronic wage declarations to UWV. How do you manage the change of... Oh, sorry. That's that was the end of the question. Right. So that's a really good question. But basically, for cases like this, there's a lot of localizations that are still being improved year to year. So if you have any feedback, of course, send it to us or come see us at the OXP. There's going to be an HR booth and a payroll booth. We always appreciate the feedback from the community. It makes a lot of difference in making the program better every year. So whatever feedback you have, go ahead and send it to us. And yeah, we look forward at seeing you at OXP, where we're going to be talking about all things HR. So thank you guys so much for joining today, and we'll see you next time.